January 19, 1945. The frost on the train platform at Theresienstadt cut through Corporal Friedrich Weber's wool coat like it wasn't even there. His breath hung in the air, thick and white, as he stood at attention beside the cattle cars. The metal was so cold it burned when you touched it. He'd learned that the hard way an hour ago. Friedrich had been a guard for 8 months now, long enough to know the routine, long enough to stop asking questions, long enough to become invisible in his own skin. The train stretched before him like a coiled snake, 14 cars, each one sealed with iron bolts and barbed wire across the ventilation slats. Inside, he could hear them, whispers, coughs. A child crying somewhere in the third car. The sound scraped against something inside him he'd thought he'd buried. Weber. Oberscharführer Krantz barked from the platform edge. His voice was gravel and authority. "You're in car 7. Keep them quiet. We're already behind schedule." Friedrich nodded sharply. Jawohl, Oberscharführer. Krantz was already moving down the line, his boots clicking against the frozen concrete. Friedrich watched him go, then turned to face car 7. The wood was weathered gray, stained dark near the bottom. He didn't want to think about what caused those stains. Before he climbed aboard the guard platform on the outside of the car, he caught a glimpse through the ventilation slat. Eyes. Dozens of them, reflecting what little light filtered through. They weren't looking at him. They were looking through him, past him, into some distance he couldn't see. The train lurched, steam hissed, metal groaned against metal. They were moving. Friedrich gripped his carabiner tighter and tried to ignore the way his hands were shaking. It wasn't cold. He'd stopped lying to himself about that weeks ago. The journey to Auschwitz-Birkenau would take 36 hours if they were lucky. The temperature would drop further as they moved east. The people inside car 7 had no heat, no water, no space to sit properly. Most of them wouldn't survive the journey. Friedrich knew this because he'd made this trip 4 times before. He positioned himself on the small exterior platform between cars 6 and 7, where he could monitor both. The wind hit him immediately, sharp, relentless, searching for any gap in his uniform. But out here, at least, he didn't have to look directly into those eyes. The city fell away behind them. First, the buildings, then the scattered houses, then nothing but white fields and skeletal trees clawing at a gray sky. The rhythm of the train became hypnotic. Click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. Inside car 7, someone began to pray. The words were Hebrew, unfamiliar, but the desperation in the voice was a language Friedrich understood perfectly. He'd grown up in a small village outside Munich. His father had been a teacher. His mother made the best apple strudel in 3 counties. Friedrich had wanted to study engineering. He'd wanted to build bridges. Instead, he'd built a wall inside himself, brick by brick. Order by order, journey by journey. The train picked up speed, snow began to fall. Friedrich pulled his collar higher and tried not to listen to the prayer that had now been joined by others. A chorus of the condemned rising into the frozen air where their words would freeze and shatter and mean nothing to anyone, except they meant something to him, and that was the problem. 3 hours into the journey, the temperature had dropped another 5 degrees. Friedrich's face was numb, his fingers aching even inside his gloves. But he stayed at his post. That's what you did. You followed orders. You maintained discipline. You didn't think so. The praying had stopped an hour ago. Now there was only the occasional cough, the shuffle of bodies trying to find impossible comfort in impossible space. And the train, always the train, devouring kilometers, carrying its cargo east toward the smokestacks Friedrich pretended he'd never seen. Then a voice cut through the wind. Guard. It came from the ventilation slat of car 7. Not loud, not aggressive, almost polite. The kind of voice that might order coffee in a cafe or discuss the weather with a neighbor. Friedrich didn't respond. Rule number 1, never engage. They try to humanize themselves. They try to make you see them as people. Don't look. Don't listen. Don't respond. Guard, please. There's a child in here. She's very sick. She needs water." The voice was a man's. Educated. Probably 40, maybe 50. The kind of voice that had once held authority, back when such things mattered for men like him. Friedrich stared straight ahead at the empty landscape, white fields, gray sky. Nothing. "Her name is Rachel. She's 7 years old. Her fever is very high." Friedrich's jaw tightened. "Don't respond. Don't engage. Don't. I'm a doctor. I was a doctor. My name is David Horowitz. I practiced in Prague for 22 years. I delivered over 300 babies. I've seen fever like this. If she doesn't get water soon, she won't survive the journey." The train swayed. Friedrich adjusted his stance, kept his eyes forward. "I'm not asking for us. Just the child. Just a little water. Please." Silence. The wind howled. The train clicked on. "Do you have children, guard?" Friedrich's hands tightened on his rifle. His younger sister, Greta, was 7 years old. She had blonde braids and was missing her 2 front teeth and laughed at terrible jokes and insisted on sleeping with her stuffed rabbit, even though she insisted she was too old for such things. "I have a daughter," the voice continued, softer now. "She's 9. Her name is Esther. She's in this train car with me. She keeps asking me why it's so cold. I don't know what to tell her anymore. I used to have answers. I was the man with answers. Now I have nothing but frozen breath and lies." "Stop talking," Friedrich thought. "Please stop talking. Rachel, the sick girl, she's not my daughter. Her parents were taken 2 weeks ago. Selection. You know what that means. Her aunt is here, but the aunt is elderly, weak. Someone needs to help. Someone needs to—" "Quiet." Friedrich's voice cracked through the wind like a whip. He hadn't meant to speak. Hadn't meant to break his own rule. The voice behind the wall stopped. Friedrich closed his eyes, breathed out slowly. What had he done? "I'm sorry," the doctor said after a moment. "I'm sorry. I'll be quiet." But the damage was done. Friedrich had responded. He'd acknowledged them. He'd cracked the wall. And worse, he'd hurt himself at that moment. I heard the anger, the fear, the thing beneath it all that he'd been running from since he'd first put on this uniform. The train rolled on. The snow fell harder. And somewhere in car 7, a 7-year-old girl named Rachel burned with fever in the dark. Night fell like a hammer. The temperature plunged. Friedrich's post was now a frozen hell wind cutting through every layer, his breath coming in sharp, painful gasps. His replacement was supposed to come at 2100 hours. That was still 3 hours away. Inside car 7, the sounds had changed. More coughing now. Weaker. Someone was weeping quietly, continuously, like a slow leak that couldn't be stopped. Friedrich hadn't heard the doctor's voice since the afternoon. At 1930 hours, the train stopped at a switching station. Standard protocol. The guards gathered near the engine for hot coffee and bread. Oberscharführer Krantz was there, smoking, discussing something about supplies with another officer. Friedrich held his tin cup of coffee with both hands, letting the heat seep into his frozen fingers. Around him, the other guards talked and laughed and complained about the cold, as if this were just another job, just another transport, just another first time doing a winter run, Weber? It was Kessler, a guard from car 9, young, maybe 20, still enthusiastic about the work. "No," Friedrich said. "Fourth. Gets easier, right?" Friedrich didn't answer. "I mean, at first I couldn't stop thinking about them, you know, what's happening, where they're going. But then you realize orders are orders, right? We're just following orders. It's not like we're making the decisions." Friedrich stared into his coffee, his own face reflected back at him, distorted, unrecognizable. "You all right, Weber? You look sick." "I'm fine. Better drink up. Krantz wants us back at 10. Friedrich nodded. Drank. The coffee was bitter and too hot and tasted like ash. When he returned to his post, the doctor's voice was waiting. "Guard, please. The girl is dying." Friedrich positioned himself, looked away. Said nothing. "I know you can hear me. I know you heard me this afternoon. You spoke. You're human. You have a voice. Please use it now. Don't respond. Don't engage. Don't. Her fever has spiked. She's convulsing. Without water, without cooling her down, she'll be dead before morning. You have water. I saw you drinking. Please. Friedrich's hand moved unconsciously to the canteen on his belt. It was 3/4 full. Standard issue. Lukewarm now, but still water. Just a little. That's all. Pour it through the slat. I'll catch it. I'll make it reach her. The train began moving again, slow at first, then building speed. The rhythm resumed. Click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. My daughter is watching me, the doctor said, and his voice was different now. Broken. She's watching me beg you for help. She's learning what kind of world this is, what kind of men exist in it, what kind of man you are. Friedrich's breathing came faster. His hand was on the canteen now, gripping it. What's her name? The words escaped before he could stop them. A pause. Then, Rachel. Her name is Rachel Eisenberg. She had a doll once. Pink dress, button eyes. She carried it everywhere. They took it during processing. She cried. For 3 days. Now she doesn't cry at all. She just burns. Friedrich unscrewed the canteen. The sound was loud in the wind. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. If I do this, Friedrich said, voice low, no one can know. If Krantz finds out, no one will know. I promise. Just help her. Please. Friedrich moved to the ventilation slat. Through the gaps in the barbed wire he could see movement, shadows. The doctor's face appeared gaunt, bearded, eyes hollow but still somehow burning with desperate hope. Friedrich lifted the canteen. Wait, the doctor said. Cup your hands. Make a bowl. I'll guide you. Through the slat, hands emerged. Old hands, weathered, shaking from cold and hunger, and something beyond both. Friedrich poured slowly. Water splashed, some missed, but most reached the cupped palms. The doctor disappeared back into the darkness. Friedrich heard whispers. Movement. Then, faintly, the sound of a child drinking. He screwed the canteen shut and returned to his position. His heart was hammering. His hands are still shaking. He'd just violated direct orders. He'd just committed an offense that could mean court-martial, prison, execution. He'd just saved a child's life. Maybe. From inside car 7, the doctor's voice came one more time, barely audible above the train's roar. Thank you. God sees what you did. I see what you did. Thank you. Friedrich didn't respond. But standing there in the frozen darkness, with the wind tearing at him, and the weight of his rifle, and his uniform, and his crimes pressing down, he felt the wall inside him crack, completely. And on the other side was something he'd thought he'd killed months ago. His conscience. The sun rose red over Poland, blood red, as if the sky itself was ashamed. Friedrich hadn't slept. No one slept on these transports, not the guards, not the prisoners. You just existed in a state between waking and dreaming, where reality became fluid and everything was painted in shades of suffering. They were 12 hours from Auschwitz now. The child, Rachel, had survived the night. Friedrich had heard her coughing at dawn, which meant she was breathing, which meant the water had helped. But he'd also heard Oberscharführer Krantz walking the length of the train during the night, checking on guards, ensuring discipline. Krantz had stopped at Friedrich's post for a full minute, watching him, saying nothing, then moving on. Did he know? Could he know? At 0 to 700 hours, the train stopped again. Another switching station, another gathering of guards. But this time, Krantz called Friedrich over specifically. Weber, walk with me. Friedrich's blood turned to ice water. This was it. He'd been seen. Reported. It was over. They walked along the platform, away from the other guards. Krantz lit a cigarette, offered one to Friedrich. Friedrich took it with numb fingers. You've been with us 8 months, Krantz said, exhaling smoke into the frozen air. Yes, Oberscharführer. Good service record, reliable, quiet, never caused problems. Thank you, Oberscharführer. Krantz stopped, turned to face him directly. His eyes were gray and cold and completely unreadable. Kessler says you seemed unwell last night. distracted. Is there a problem, Weber? Friedrich's mind raced. Deny everything. Show strength. No, Oberscharführer. Just the cold. It won't happen again. Good. Krantz took another drag. Because we need reliable men. Men who understand the importance of duty. The importance of not letting sentiment interfere with orders. He paused. You understand this, don't you, Weber? Yes, Oberscharführer. I hope so. Krantz dropped his cigarette, crushed it under his boot. Because sentiment is weakness. And weakness spreads like disease. One weak guard becomes two becomes four. Before you know it, discipline collapses. Order collapses. Everything we're working for collapses. He stepped closer. Friedrich could smell tobacco and stale coffee on his breath. They're not people anymore, Weber. Do you understand this? They're cargo. Resources to be processed. The moment you start seeing them as people with names, with families, with children who need water, that's the moment you become useless to me. Worse than useless. Dangerous. Friedrich's throat was dry. I understand, Oberscharführer. Do you? Krantz's eyes bored into him. Because I've seen good men break. Strong men. Men who thought they could handle this work. They start making exceptions. Small ones at first. A piece of bread here. A kind word there. Then bigger ones. And then they're no good to anyone. Not to me. Not to the Reich. Not even to themselves. He turned and started walking back toward the train. Over his shoulder. We arrive at Birkenau at 2100 hours tonight. After unloading, you're being reassigned. Different duty. They need guards at a work camp. Real soldiers, not nursemaids. Consider it a promotion. Friedrich stood frozen on the platform. A promotion. Because Krantz suspected something. Because Friedrich had shown weakness. Because he'd given water to a dying child. The train whistle blew. Time to board again. Friedrich climbed back to his post. The sun was higher now, but provided no warmth. Below him, through the ventilation slat, he heard the doctor's voice again. Guard. Are you there? Friedrich closed his eyes. He should ignore it. Should follow Krantz's warning. Should protect himself. Rachel is better this morning. Her fever broke. I think she might survive the journey. Because of you. Friedrich gripped his rifle. His knuckles were white. Inside his chest, something was tearing apart. I don't know your name, the doctor continued quietly. I don't know anything about you. But I know what you did, and I know it will cost you something. I could see it in your eyes. You're not like the others. Stop, Friedrich whispered. My daughter asked me this morning if there are still good people in the world. I told her yes. I told her about you. Please stop. She wanted me to tell you thank you. She's 9 years old. Her name is Esther. She wanted you to know that someone remembers what you did. That it matters. That it doesn't matter. Friedrich's voice exploded. He moved to the slat, pressed his face close to the barbed wire. Don't you understand? It doesn't matter. In 12 hours, you'll all be dead. That child I gave water to, she'll die. Your daughter, she'll die. You'll all die, and nothing I did will change that. Nothing. Silence from inside. Then, softly, I know. Friedrich's legs nearly gave out. He grabbed the railing to steady himself. I know where we're going, the doctor said. I've known since they loaded us. I'm not stupid. I'm not delusional. But that girl had one more night of life because of you. One more night with less suffering. And my daughter saw that even in hell, someone can still choose kindness. That matters. Even if no one else knows. It matters. Friedrich slid down to sit on the cold metal platform. His rifle lay across his knees. His hands covered his face. What's your name? The doctor asked. He shouldn't answer. Every rule, every protocol, every instinct for survival screamed at him not to answer. Friedrich, he whispered. My name is Friedrich Weber. Thank you, Friedrich Weber, for remembering we're human, for not forgetting yourself. The train rolled on. The sun climbed higher. And Friedrich Weber sat in the freezing wind, understanding with crystal clarity that he had reached a crossroads. Behind him was the path he'd been walking, the path of obedience, of survival, of following orders no matter how dark they led. Ahead was something else, something that would likely cost him everything. At 1700 hours, 5 cars ahead, a commotion erupted. Shouts, gunfire. A prisoner had attempted to escape when they'd stopped for water. Friedrich heard Kranz's voice barking orders. The gunfire stopped. One prisoner died on the tracks. Order restored. This was the machine Friedrich was part of. Efficient, brutal, unstoppable. But machines break, sometimes from external damage, sometimes from internal corrosion. Friedrich stood up. He walked along the exterior platform to the door at the end of the car. Standard protocol. Doors were bolted from the outside, guards checked them at each station. But Friedrich had something Kranz didn't know about. During his third transport, he'd found a tool at a station, a small iron bar, thin enough to fit between the bolt and the doorframe. He'd kept it hidden, not knowing why. Maybe suspecting he'd need it someday. He reached into his coat. The iron bar was cold and heavy in his palm. "What are you doing?" his mind screamed. "You'll be caught, court-martialed, executed. Your family will be disgraced. Your sister Greta will grow up knowing her brother was a traitor." His hands moved to the bolt. But she'll grow up in a world where her brother chose humanity over horror, where he refused to be the man Kranz wanted him to be. The bolt was frozen. Friedrich worked at it with the iron bar, trying to be quiet, trying to steady his shaking hands. Minutes passed. His heart hammered so loud he was certain everyone could hear it. The bolt moved, inch by inch. Finally, it slid free. Friedrich didn't open the door. Not yet. Instead, he moved back to his post and called through the ventilation slat. "Dr. Horowitz, listen carefully. Don't interrupt. I'm listening. In 30 minutes, we'll stop at another station. The guards will gather at the front of the train. When you hear the whistle blow twice, that's your signal. The door to your car will be unlocked. You'll have maybe 3 minutes before someone notices." Silence. Then, "Why are you doing this?" "The forests here are dense. If you run north, stay low, you might find partisans, might find shelter. Most of you won't make it, but some might. The child Rachel carried, her if you can. Tell your daughter. Tell Esther." His voice broke. He couldn't finish. "Tell her what?" the doctor pressed gently. "Tell her there are still people who choose to be human, even when it costs everything. What will happen to you?" Friedrich looked at the horizon, at the red sun sinking into blood-colored clouds. "I'll be what I should have been from the beginning, a man who tried." "Friedrich Weber," the doctor said, and his voice was choked with emotion. "I will remember your name. If I survive, if Esther survives, if anyone survives, I will tell them. I will make sure your choice is remembered." "Just run," Friedrich said. "When the whistle blows, run and don't look back." He moved away from the slat. His hands were steady now. His breathing is calm. For the first time in 8 months, he felt like himself again. The real self. The one who'd wanted to build bridges instead of walls. The train approached the station. Steam hissed. Brakes squealed. Friedrich took his position, waited. When the guards began moving toward the front, he reached for his whistle. Everything inside him said this was insane, suicidal, wrong. But everything that made him human, everything that connected him to his father, the teacher, his mother with her strudel, his sister with her rabbit, the boy who wanted to build bridges, everything that mattered said this was right. He blew the whistle, twice, clear and sharp. Then he drew his pistol, walked to the front of the train where Kranz stood, and said the words that would end his life but save his soul. "Oberscharführer Kranz, I've opened car 7. I'm surrendering myself for court-martial. Do what you must." The records are incomplete, the files scattered, but a few facts remain. Corporal Friedrich Weber was arrested on January 20th, 1945 for sabotage and treason. He was court-martialed 3 days later and executed by firing squad on January 27th. He was 23 years old. Of the 143 people in car 7, 38 escaped into the forest during the 3 minutes of chaos Friedrich created. Most were recaptured or died from exposure. 11 reached partisan groups. Among the survivors, Dr. David Horowitz, his daughter Esther, and a 7-year-old girl named Rachel Eisenberg. After the war, Dr. Horowitz testified at Nuremberg. He was one of the few witnesses who spoke not only of the crimes, but of the exceptions, of the guard who chose humanity when it would have been easier and safer to choose obedience. He made sure Friedrich Weber's name was entered into the record. Esther Horowitz immigrated to America in 1947. She became a teacher, like Friedrich's father. She taught history, and every year, she told her students about a young German guard who proved that even in the darkest machinery of evil, individual conscience could still choose differently. Rachel Eisenberg was adopted by her surviving aunt. She grew up in Tel Aviv. I had children, grandchildren, lived to be 89 years old. She named her first daughter Frieda, as close as she could come to Friedrich in a feminine form. Friedrich's sister, Greta, learned of her brother's execution in 1946. The official letter called him a traitor. But survivors found her years later, told her the truth, told her what her brother had done. She kept a photograph of him on her mantle for the rest of her life. Sometimes courage doesn't win wars. Sometimes it doesn't even save many lives. Sometimes all it does is prove that humanity can exist in hell. That individual choice matters even when the system is designed to make it meaningless. Friedrich Weber was one guard on one train in one moment of a war that killed 60 million people. His choice didn't stop the Holocaust, didn't liberate the camps, didn't change history's trajectory, but it changed the trajectory of 38 souls. It gave 11 people a chance at life they wouldn't have had. It taught a 9-year-old girl that goodness wasn't extinct. It allowed a doctor to witness that the darkness wasn't absolute, and perhaps most importantly, it meant that on one frozen morning in Poland, when a young man stood at the crossroads between survival and humanity, he chose to be something more than his orders. He chose to be Friedrich Weber, the boy who wanted to build bridges. And in the end, he did. Not bridges of steel and stone, but bridges between the person he was becoming and the person he refused to become. Those bridges are the kind that echo longest in history.